What was the most legendary thing a student did at school? Maybe not legendary, but an interesting and funny experiment. There were three high schools in my hometown. Two of them, both named after famous historical figures of said town, were in a sort of rivalry with each other. Nothing serious, but the students would casually trash talk the other school a lot, mostly in good fun. Each school had a display case with a bust of their respective historical namesake somewhere in the building. They were just some decoration, objects that you would pass by every single day and pay little attention to. So we figured we'd test how little attention people actually paid these things. So one night, a few buddies of mine and I got together. Most of us were from my school, but we had a few inside men from the other one as well. We split up into two teams, got access to both buildings simultaneously, picked open the very cheap locks on the display cases, grabbed the busts and switched them. Keep in mind, these schools were not that close to one another, and none of us had been old enough to drive at that point, so we had to carry these fucking limestone busts through half the town. We then locked the busts into the display cases again and left. We had managed completely non-destructive entry to both schools, so nobody ever found out. It took almost an entire school year for anyone to notice. To this day, no teacher has ever found out who was responsible, but no damage was done, so they didn't try too hard to figure it out. My English teacher was close to retirement and had really poor eyesight. A mate started the lesson on the right side of the classroom and managed to shuffle both himself and his desk to the back of the room and then over to the left. He then managed to climb through the window, sauntered round the building, came back into the room and apologized for being late. This kid in my class put the school for sale on Craigslist. He provided the school's attendance office number as a point of contact because everyone hated the receptionist there. They were getting calls from interested buyers for days who wanted to buy a multiple acres of property with a big swimming pool and a track. One of my friends brought in a universal remote and tuned it to the TV in the lunch hall. This TV's original remote had long since been lost, so he had the only one. Instead of the news during lunch, he would change it to sitcoms, etc. The teachers were pretty clueless and kept flicking through dozens of channels only for him to immediately change back. They even started turning it off. He just turned it back on again. About a month of this, and the teachers finally gave up. Nobody except our immediate friend group knew it was him doing this, but the entire school had whispers about this mystery man for ending the scourge that was the news channel. Teacher tries to open the door. It does not move. Teacher says he'll ask the maintenance dudes to help open it. While he's away, dude tries to force the door open. Instead falls through the door, as he just creates a hole. Doing so, it does, however, open the door. Teacher comes back without maintenance guy. Teacher blanks for a moment, then says, "Thanks for opening the door. I'll need to know who to thank." No one answers, but only one dude has pieces of wood in his hair, so he got caught. There was this guy who was almost universally liked in my high school. Did everything, AP classes, theater, football, track. His grades were good, but he wasn't the valedictorian. That didn't stop him from getting up during the graduation ceremony and giving a speech like there was nothing strange about it, and they let him finish too. Not mine, but someone superglued the computer mouses, to the desks in the computer lab. It was my son. My son did that. He never got caught, just told me long after the fact. It was legendarily stupid. We had mandatory swimming classes in my sophomore year of high school. Anyways, 3 days a week, the school was getting bomb threats and all of us would have to leave class and go to the gym. The threats always happened at the same time. This went on for weeks and weeks. It turns out there was this kid who didn't want to swim and who was using a payphone down the block to call in the threats. This was 1985. He got suspended for 2 weeks and had to take gym for summer school. He is a legend to this day, yet I can't remember his name. The senior prank one year was hiring a mariachi band to follow our principal around all day. He loved it. Went classroom to classroom so everyone could see it and take pictures, shoot videos, and have a fun break from class. Picked up the front end of the tractor, deadlift style, with the teacher sitting in the driver's seat of the tractor. The tractor was part of the agricultural department. It was a rural school. A few years after I graduated, the school was preparing to take their assessment tests, which rate the schools. Many people think these tests are a waste of time, but they are important to school administrators. So the principal orders that some classes are interrupted in order to make sure that all the kids have refreshers in some basic math and writing skills. A few kids in a U.S. history honors class were angry. They resented the interruption as the classes were preparing them for an independent AP exam that awarded college credit. In response, they decided to intentionally sabotage the assessment tests. Our school was in an upper middle class area and regularly scored in low 90s, the top 10%. Then suddenly the school scored in the mid-low 80s. Turns out that 15 to 20 students out of 300 turning in absolute zeros can impact an average score. School administrators went berserk. Stories were circulated. Students were threatened, but nothing came of it. The students never confessed. The tests were anonymous. The school rules didn't forbid poor performance. It helped that the students were led by kids whose parents were well-trained in protesting during the 1960s. It was a great scene. I've shared this story before, but it's probably one of my favorite memories of high school. Halloween costumes were banned at my high school because of some idiots like 10 years before that dressed up and used it as an excuse to hide their face while they vandalized the school. My senior year, more than half of the class decided that we would still dress up and march into the school together in the morning. We all knew we would be punished right away, but it didn't matter. I stayed up all night making a suit of armor out of metallic duct tape and cardboard, along with a broomstick horse to ride. The next day, we all gathered in the parking and waited for everyone to show up. People went all out, and there were a lot of amazing costumes. And after about 20 minutes of waiting, we started our march in. The deans had learned of our plan and were waiting for us right as we entered. They started pulling people aside in groups and taking student IDs to hand out detentions. In my group, there was one guy dressed up as an ATM, and when the dean asked for his ID, he started making ATM noises and then slipped the ID out through the slot where you would put your debit card in. It was one of the funniest things, and I was so jealous that my costume was not as clever as his. Even though having so many of us participate was pretty awesome, his costume just made that whole event for me. Long ago, during my senior year, we had an advanced chemistry class, so only like 13 students. It was a test day, so we had a plan. Our valedictorian asks to go to the bathroom before the test. He leaves and sprints to the payphones, long ago, next to the cafeteria, and calls the office. Says he is a police officer and needs to speak with our teacher immediately. The office calls him to the phone, and he leaves the room. The rest of us bust out a grocery store birthday cake, put up birthday decorations and balloons, pass out party hats, the whole 9 yards. Teacher gets to the office. The Val says, blah, 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 Mickey Mouse, and hangs up and sprints back to the class. Teach gets back and we start singing happy birthday. He was like, but it's not my birthday. Needless to say, we had our cake and ate it. Test was postponed until the next week. It was before my time, but I've had multiple teachers confirm the truth of the story. Long ago, someone donated an old VW Bug to said school to have an auto class. The last year that class was available, a group of seniors disassembled the car and reassembled it around a tree. In the middle of the night on a weekend, I believe in a single session. The staff was so impressed, no charges were pressed, and they left it there for the week. It was gone the following Monday, and I wasn't able to find anyone who knew exactly what happened to it. One day in 7th grade, the class clown was verbally saddened by the fact that our female math teacher didn't wear a dress again, like he had asked. He promised her that tomorrow he will wear a dress as well, so that she wouldn't be the only one wearing a dress. Well, next day comes around, and she isn't in a dress. Clown comes in not wearing one either, and is shocked that she didn't wear one. She responded with, neither did you. Then the fucking legend started stripping to reveal that under his normal clothes, he was wearing his sister's dress. We all died laughing, and he deadass wore it the rest of class. It was too uncomfortable for him, though, so he changed back for the rest of the day. Fucking legend. TL Dr. Student wore a dress under his normal clothes to class to prove a point. It isn't up there with the legendary, but it's a funny story. We had strict rules on jackets, no logos, black, white, or gray only, no drawings. It has to be completely plain. It went as far as taking away their jackets during winter and not giving them back, which to this day I still believe is fucking abhorrent and that the ministry needed a good lawsuit to make up for it. But anyway, my sister was wearing a black jacket with Nora written on it, in white text. A teacher stopped her to do the usual yelling and lecturing. My sister calmly responded, "Noir means black, therefore my jacket is completely black." That shut her up good. Oh man, I have so many stories that fit, but I think I'll go with this one. One of the kids in my class was a notorious troublemaker. We'll call him Yazoo because that was the only substance I think I've ever seen him consume in my 5 years of knowing him. Teachers hated him because he had a bad attitude, and while he was sometimes all right, he could sometimes be really rude without any kind of warning or provocation. Anyway, we were in maths one time, and Yazoo was dicking around like usual. Bear in mind this was around the middle of the day, pretty much right after lunch. Our teacher was getting progressively more and more pissed off with Yazoo until eventually she made the fatal mistake of saying to him, "If you're not going to pay attention, you can just leave." He shrugged his shoulders, said okay, packed his things, and went home. No one tried to stop him or anything. I don't even think he got in any trouble for it, since he was technically just doing what he was told. I am going to have to throw my own kid under the bus here. My whole response to this situation is the Will Ferrell meme. I am not even mad. That is amazing. My kid and his best friend started the bubblegum cartel in middle school. Him and his best friend, they are both Italians, it seems you can't put Italians together without forming a criminal organization, started a bubblegum MLM and got a good portion of the school involved. Kids on the bottom sold it, my guys provided and made the money. Apparently it got so involved, the middle school, on 3 separate occasions, had to have a town hall to inform the kids the bubblegum cartel has to stop, and that they don't know who the perpetrators are. But the kids selling gum needs to stop as they are doing all the work and selling gum while the perpetrators are making all the money and they are being taken advantage of. In all of middle school for both years, not a single student turned them in. And the school has no idea that my son and his BFF were the head of the cartel. I was wondering why he kept asking me to buy him gum wherever we went. I thought it was a phase. He then informed me it was free gum to sell. I couldn't stop laughing my ass off. My partner was incredulous that my son took advantage of me, but I couldn't get mad about it, though I should have been. That night, for the first time in my life, I was floating on clouds and felt what peace actually feels like, because I realized my kid is going to be okay. Our school was putting in a brand new turf field, and it was taking a long time. One of my friends decided to dig up our state tree and plant it right in the middle of the field. Apparently, it's illegal to uproot our state tree where I'm from, so it stayed there for 2 weeks and halted the construction. The workers literally moved dirt around it like it was supposed to be there. I was told you have to get the state's approval to dig up a state tree, so I guess they had to wait on that. Eventually, they realized that he just broke off a branch and planted that, so they were able to uproot it. At least that's the excuse I heard as to why it was taken up. It literally looked like the tiny Christmas tree in the middle of a dirt field. Definitely didn't look like a branch. It was a huge mystery as to who did it, and when I confronted my one troublemaker friend, he gave us all a little smile. We're all pretty sure he did it. Gave the whole school a few good laughs for a while.